Hello. Find my voice. Saturday, December 27th, 2025. Mark Kulak. The show is Houstonic.live. If you can't pronounce it, I don't know what to say. I heard someone say, I can't pronounce that. You can't pronounce it? It's one of the most rivers of historic importance in U.S. history, at least in early U.S. history, is the Houstonic. You know how many things have happened on the Houstonic River? How many haunted things, especially over the last 50, 80 years? Sorry, it's a word that if you're in the United States, you should be aware of where that river is and the things that have happened on that river. My name is Mark Kulak, K-Will ECZ. I live up in the northeastern part of the United States, about a half-hour drive, give or take, from the city of Boston. Without traffic, of course. I grew up in Connecticut, close to New York City. I worked in the tech industry for 22, 23 years as a system software engineer, working my way up to tech training, sales engineer, and then sales, pre-sales engineer, and then into the world of competitive intelligence and product marketing, where eventually I became a product marketing director. One of my last two jobs. Went to University of Connecticut, got a degree in computer engineering, one of the last years at University of Connecticut. I think it was the last year that the University of Connecticut offered a degree in computer engineering. And it was issues related to chronic illness, but more importantly, during the 2000 teens, why the hell was the United States in general woefully unwilling to talk about the rapidly escalating fatal drug overdose epidemic, which led me to go from being somewhat non-political, although I have to admit I probably would have been right-leaning on a lot of issues, but I don't know, to then get more involved into reading online news, even mainstream news, and eventually into the world of Twitter throughout the years of 2014, 15, and 16, trying to understand what was going on. And then eventually things really took off online. Not for me, of course. I was just doing more and more research and archival and analysis throughout those years, eventually thinking that maybe there would be some type of business for someone who would be more of a back office type person who could present information from time to time and do analysis, offering my services to other people who I thought were independent and doing all the research and analysis and breaking the stories as independents. And as it turns out, either they just are woefully unaware of what they don't know, or many of them are also captured. And I started doing my own program around 2019, and here we are almost, let's see here. If we start, let's just say in the September of 2019, that means September 2020 is 1 year, 21 2 years, 22, 23, 24, 25. So basically, I've been over 6 years right now doing this. 6 years. So there's only one job I had my whole life where I had more than 6 years. But here we are, year 6, and this is episode 1437. The video that I did yesterday, I did not touch up. Oftentimes, I will take my live stream. I've been doing this the last couple of years or so. And I will remove the parts where I stumble a little bit. Maybe I can do some small edits where I misspeak. Sometimes I'll splice in a little bit of extra video. I can usually take off with a little bit of tweaking and adjusting and polishing anywhere between 5 to 25% of the video length and make it smoother. It runs a little bit faster and avoid a couple of technical things which I might get wrong. There were a couple of very tiny things I had wrong in my video yesterday, but overall it was good enough. And I think it was potentially one of the most important and complete videos I've ever done among them. There's other content that I've covered, which I've covered so many different events and provided so much content that maybe I should be careful in saying it is the best, but I was very proud of it. And yesterday's video was about how the rise and the visibility and everything which right now we're having to look at with respect to the phenomenon of the last few months, which is Candace Owens. Most people don't even realize that Charlie Kirk was killed anymore. That's just sort of a side story right now. It's really all about Candace Owens. And Candace Owens, she's an American. I don't agree with all of her views. I don't think she's been honest about quite a few things. But whatever the case, she's an American. She represents more the future of my country than I do. So I hope that she makes good decisions and is more forthcoming about some things. Tearing each other down is not the way to claim victory. Nonetheless, though, that type of dishonesty, which has come from many people, and she's not the brainchild of any of this. She's hired as an actor or actress, can be used to get a tremendous amount of insights on other things. As an actress, she's been recruited into a much bigger system that is way bigger than she is. And if she was never born, someone else would be doing her role right now. It's not as if the world is defined because Candace Owens exists in the way that she does. She's been hired into a role. Maybe there's some unique things about the role because of her own history and her own character and experiences. But trust me, the role of Candace Owens, it would be called someone else because it's loosely based off of her real life, but it's also an abstraction of it and her playing herself being a little bit different than what she actually is. Here's an example of another way of thinking about it. One of the more famous actors in the United States over the last several years, maybe 20 years, 20 even 30 years, is Christopher Walken, who is a fascinating person to watch on screen. His language, the way he uses his eyes, his body, the way he can move, his agileness. There's a lot of things about him. The way he smiles, that is just cool. Now, Christopher Walken has a way of speaking in a particular style, which I'm sure in real life mirrors some of his real self. But what has happened is he's probably taken his real self and he's embellished it and he's adapted his real natural self as needed for movies. And because of the cool factor, he probably has repeated this several times. And then other people now can sell seats as comedians or make guest appearances on late night talk shows simply by impersonating Christopher Walken. Even though that impersonation may match what we think of Christopher Walken's, it's not actually him in real life. You know, when he wakes up in the morning, how does he get out of bed? What does he say? Does he do his stretches? Does he prefer eggs in the morning? Does he go for a jog? How does he really talk? What does he really wear? Does he put on bunny slippers? You know, there's a real life Christopher Walken's, which may not be exactly like the guy in the movie, you know, who wakes up, has a shot of alcohol, has a cigarette, and is immediately talking cool and making deals. And the point is that there's a character of Christopher Walken's, which is loosely based off the real person, but it also matches a lot of things which he's done and roles that he's played for movies. So it's not actually a real person. So when Christopher Walken himself now becomes a guest on a show, he may actually play the role of what people think Christopher Walken is in real life. He's now impersonating himself, or a version of himself that people think is real. And Candace Owens, I believe, is much like this. There is a real Candace Owens. There's also the Candace Owens, which she has portrayed, who's recently determined that, transsexuals problem and wokeism is bad, and that there's Zionists behind every shed. Every tree is a Zionist ready to take over the world and manipulate how you think. Zionists are everywhere. It's like zombie movies, when you don't look, suddenly they shake, like the movie The Matrix, right? You'll see a guy that has a long beard and says, I love the Confederacy t-shirt, driving along, listening to Led Zeppelin or Alabama, Sweet Home Alabama. And then when you're not looking, suddenly the face shakes and boom, a Zionist appears, because Zionists are everywhere. This is this caricature that Candace Owens has created right now. And it's not really her, but it's the version of Candace Owens that you see when she does her show. Anyways, by understanding Candace Owens' career, the caricature of Candace Owens that she LARPs, live action role play, by the way, for those who aren't familiar with LARP stands for, is a way to be able to learn about a much bigger picture. Now, I titled today's video, So Did Candace Owens Interview Jeffrey Epstein with Steve Bannon? And I wanted to do a review of yesterday's show. In my video yesterday, which was December 26, 2025, I was very clear that I didn't really feel as though it was necessary to review whether or not Candace Owens has met with or even collaborated with Jeffrey Epstein. And I did say yes, though, that there's no reason to believe that definitely happened, nor, based upon the evidence that we reviewed yesterday, that it would be wise to rule out the possibility that Candace Owens has met Jeffrey Epstein at least once. Now, that would be an odd thing. You just meet him once. Okay. I bring this up because I'm going to show you something that is making the rounds lately. Now, this is a video from Democracy Watch. I'm certain that there's a lot of things in Democracy Watch I don't agree with, and perhaps you as well. But this is from a day ago. So let us open this up here, and let's listen to the Democracy Watch video from a day ago. The title of this video on Democracy Watch from a day ago is Bannon, meaning Steve Bannon, finally abandoned by MAGA as gross Epstein emails surface.
Evidently, Steve Bannon's viewers, some of them at least, have finally reached a line past which they do not want to follow him, and it has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, if you've been paying attention to this, you know that Steve Bannon, it turns out, we now know, apparently had a pretty cozy relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and was even working after we knew everything we needed to know about Jeffrey Epstein. Steve Bannon was working in secret to try to rehabilitate his image. Steve Bannon was trying to rehabilitate the image of one of the most notorious child predators in American history. And a lot of right-wingers are...
I'm just going to say this because, this is going to be a very unpopular thing to say. If someone is really motivated and really upset at child predators and child prostitution, then they should be looking at the high quantities of prostitution or what happens with minors in the United States and other nations, but you have to focus on your nation first, and how the strength of the family and, in particular, drug addiction play into this. This whole thing of it's all about Epstein, that's why children are at risk, because Epstein is silly. If Epstein did what it was being accused of, the hundreds or thousands, that would still mean that he represents at most 0.003% of child prostitution, at most. So this hyper focus on Epstein for that, look, if that happened, he should be charged. There should be crimes, of course, but let's look at the bigger picture. How did that happen? There's usually drug addiction involved. And it's a constant struggle. It's a constant dance to just never mention this issue. It's as if they want to hide the fact that so many people are dying every year from drug overdoses, and how the life expectancy drop in the United States was used to suggest that it was because of a deadly novel virus that came from China, or a bad vaccine, bad DNA vaccine, and they're going to blame the military, Fauci, and Trump, or something like that.
Evidently fine with this, but some are like, hey, this seems to go against everything we've been saying. And especially when they found out that he did this really long taped interview with Epstein, and he's just been...
They found out? I've been talking about that now for over a year. Actually, at least 9 months, 9 to 10 months. And I also brought it up recently here on HughSatonic.live. The taped interview of Jeffrey Epstein. And in fact, if you do not believe, we'll restart this video in a second. But let's go up to the O's. Owens. Owens, and there's a lot here. Sorry about that. There is a lot here, though. Actually, I shouldn't be sorry about that. That's good. That's good. Let's go up to the year 2019, because some really interesting things happen in 2019. So, on August 4th, 2019, Steve Bannon was interviewed by Candace Owens on the United States-Mexico border. It's not like it was just a studio interview or a phone call. They went together to the U.S. border on August 4th, 2019. Interesting, because Jeffrey Epstein dies on August 10th. And they're talking about an interview of 16, 18, I heard up to 24 hours of unreleased interview. That's like a week of recording that Steve Bannon has with Jeffrey Epstein, which occurred in July of 2019. So the last real long multi-day or almost last interview that Jeffrey Epstein had before he goes to prison is with Steve Bannon. And then Steve Bannon never releases it. And then Steve Bannon goes to the border to talk with Candace Owens. And then Jeffrey Epstein dies. So right smack in the middle of this, Steve Bannon interviewed Jeffrey Epstein and then never released the videos, is the fact that those extended interviews happened a few weeks before Jeffrey Epstein died. And Candace Owens is smack in the middle of it. Now, also, one of the biggest lifelong business partners of Jeffrey Epstein is, ta-da, Harvey Weinstein. And Candace Owens also has the first interview with Harvey Weinstein in like 8 years of any person on Earth. Of course, Harvey Weinstein and Steve Bannon are collaborators, very close business partners going back to 2005 at least, but I think that I can trace it back to 2004 and possibly even until late 1990s. So Candace Owens is right in the middle of this. Anyways, I want to give context here, and I want to remind you that I was highlighting, first of all, I kept highlighting this Steve Bannon interviews with Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, one way that you can tell is if you go to HughSatonic.live and you click on the playlists, every year I share a bunch of videos. And that means that I have them downloaded and I repost them, usually with my own thumbnail pictures. I'm very clear that I'm reposting the videos. I say they're shared videos. I share the original link. I share the original comment boxes down below. And I have a playlist for all the videos that I share each year. And if you go to 2025 shared videos, you'll see right up on top is the Steve Bannon last recorded interview with Jeffrey Epstein before he went to prison. It's a 1-minute video. It's a teaser that Steve Bannon himself released. So in the beginning of this year, 2025, and you can look at the timestamps of when I reposted that, I was the person that was reminding everyone that that interview happened. And then I think it was because I never really talked about Candace Owens. It was 3 weeks ago or so, maybe less, I reminded my audience in the world that, you know what, it's odd that Steve Bannon did that interview just a couple of weeks before, maybe it was 3 weeks, before going to the border and talking with Candace Owens. And then I think less than 5 days after that, Jeffrey Epstein is dead. And Candace Owens is like this with Harvey Weinstein. And Harvey Weinstein, in one of those interviews, alludes to the fact that he's known Candace for a long time. makes sense because Candace Owens got her start. Well, got her start. She worked in New York City for a while. Very vague, but we do know that Candace Owens, her startup company, Social Autopsy, which was created in 2015, was co-started with a woman named Zoe Weiner. Zoe Weiner is the daughter of a top DNC fundraiser, Mark Weiner, who has worked. They did the bundling together with Harvey Weinstein. And there's a whole lot more that you can review about that I talked about yesterday. Anyways, another data point here, before I go back to this video, is that Candace Owens, she had two multi-person, race-based hate crime allegations that she made in high school. Two different incidents totaling 7 people that she made accusations against. Only one is well known. The other one is lesser well known, but I found the documentation supporting it. And at least during the second one, according to an interview with Stefan Molyneux, who's a big supporter of Steve Bannon, in 2017, she says that during that time, she was involved with the NAACP and Jesse Jackson, which also means the possibility that she also met Jesse Jackson's son, named Yusef Jackson, who was a pallbearer for Mark Weiner, who passed in 2016. But Yusef Jackson also has investment interests in New York City, and there's a possibility that she would have worked with Yusef Jackson in New York City. And in fact, maybe the private equity company that Candace Owens worked with was with Yusef Jackson. Yusef Jackson also is a top sponsor, financial investor in the first decade of the 2000s magazine Radar with Jeffrey Epstein. They did 2 test run episodes in 2003 using most of the staff from Harvey Weinstein and Tucker Carlson's magazine Talk, which stopped printing in the end of 2001. And then it was Mort Zuckerman and Johnny Deutsch, and Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein, all involved, with Hillary Clinton attending the parties. So if Candace Owens is so close with so many people, such as Harvey Weinstein and Steve Bannon, who have been in this Jeffrey Epstein ecosystem, and now we know that Steve Bannon was collaborating with Jeffrey Epstein from 16, 17, 18, 19, and we know that Candace Owens was recruited, or not recruited, but she collaborated to some extent with Miley Yiannopoulos, who worked with Steve Bannon during the Gamergate saga of 2016. We now have almost a 4-year window during which Candace Owens is interviewing with and associated with the network of podcasters and influencers and talkers and yappers of Steve Bannon, where Steve Bannon is also working with Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein is also, the record shows, a business partner of Harvey Weinstein, who she interviewed. And there's a very simple question that should be asked here. Did she meet Jeffrey Epstein at this time? Did she meet him? Now, does that mean that she's also part of the Jeffrey Epstein crime? No. But if Jeffrey Epstein is part of providing the money or the intelligence or the influence behind the scenes with Steve Bannon, and if Steve Bannon and his network during those years are working with Milo and Stefan Molyneux and who knows who else, it's not unreasonable to think that they have, secure phone calls with another investor, well-connected person like Jeffrey Epstein. Who knows? Maybe one of the stories that's intended to break out at some point is that, wow, all that time, Candace Owens was getting information from Jeffrey Epstein. Who knows? I'm not saying it did happen. What I'm saying, though, is that the more you realize how well and deeply connected Candace Owens is with this network that tried her, gave her some opportunities, some wins, some losses, eventually really investing right around the time of Charlottesville, you realize it's actually it would almost be unlikely that she didn't have at least some interaction. Now, it could have been as simple as, hey, this is Jeffrey Epstein at a party or at a picnic. Or maybe they're together on a call. It may not be criminal, but it would be almost unlikely. And even if it was not extensive at all, or if they didn't meet, the point, though, is that there are so many shared connections between this network of liars and fakes and podcasters and influencers and media people who have worked with Jeffrey Epstein and Candace Owens that more can be learned and understood about the role of Candace Owens by, at the very least, acknowledging this. I suspect that the meltdown right now, the almost backing out and removal of Steve Bannon from the stage, maybe permanently or at the very least temporarily, is a big part about an emergency situation. And the emergency is, oh my God, sorry for the blasphemy, but that's what other people would say here. So, oh my God, Candace Owens is going to be connected with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, that's a nightmare scenario where we want to believe that it's the Zionists who are, behind every rock and around every corner and behind every tree, and the Israelis and the wacky Jews and the Zionist Christians who are here to infiltrate the United States along with the radical Muslims. And then, they're all going to make some money with the DuPont family, which barely makes $10 billion a year revenue. I don't know why people are focusing on the DuPonts when Google has several $100 billion a year revenue. Google has as much revenue in a week as DuPont does. So it's really silly. As a matter of fact, if I were a world ruler, what I would do is I would make sure that a small company like DuPont looks guilty, plant a little bit of information, and then have everyone chase that stupid rat down the hole somewhere to waste their time. That's how you would do it. That's how the real money is made, and that's how the world really is ruled. But anyways, let us go back to this video here and restart it, because Steve Bannon is being asked to leave the stage, and it happens not long after Mark Kulak at Houstonic.live started regularly communicating about how much we can really learn about Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein and the DNC by embracing the opportunity to learn about it through the network and the timeline of Candace Owens.
Evidently, Steve Bannon's viewers, some of them at least, have finally reached a line past which they do not want to follow him, and it has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, if you've been paying attention to this, you know that Steve Bannon, it turns out, we now know, apparently had a pretty cozy relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and was even working after we knew everything we needed to know about Jeffrey Epstein. Steve Bannon was working in secret to try to rehabilitate his image. Steve Bannon was trying to rehabilitate the image of one of the most notorious child predators in American history. And a lot of right-wingers are evidently fine with this, but some are like, hey, this seems to go against everything we've been saying. And especially when they found out that he did this really long taped interview with Epstein, and he's just been sitting on the tapes. Some of his viewers are like, hey, could we see that? Like, why did you talk to this guy, this elite predator, and you don't want us to see it? That seems a little bit weird. And so in reporting, a lot of it summed up by Media Matters about the communications between Bannon and Epstein. There are emails between the two men in which Epstein weighed in on Trump cabinet officials, writing, quote, "Getting rid of Powell, much more important than Syria or Mattis. I guess Pompeo, only one left, and Mnuchin is okay." See, they're just chatting about politics or whatever, a massive grifter and a sexual predator, just having a little bit of fun talking about politics. In others, Epstein gave Bannon advice on interviews and provided talking points for an economic conference at which the former Trump strategist was.
I have to take objection to the use of this word grifting. Bannon makes so much money just through his own investments and his the contracts he has for old Seinfeld issues and old movies. There is no way that Steve Bannon could ever ever make, no matter how much he pushes his super chat or his PayPal or his buy me a yacht or whatever the hell else, buy me a coffee, there's no way he could ever make as much, even with his visibility, as he can simply make managing money. There's no way. So this idea that it's all about honest grifting. Now, it's possible that there could be, because it's all fake, that someone could come along and simply launder money that came out of a casino in Macau or something like that, and make contributions using Bitcoin or whatever. Yeah, maybe, but it's really not about the grifting. This whole thing about grifting is so deceptive. I need to review my own charges. I have a lot of leakage right now, but I have over $2,000 a month just in costs to do this. I keep my spreadsheet posted. It's one of the highest burn rates out there. I have so many subscriptions. I have so many online accounts. I have so much equipment. I have so many purchases of books, and that's just to do this. And sometimes I can get a little bit more than that at the end of the month and claim an income, but usually not. And I'm over 6 years in, so this whole idea of grifting, compared to what I was able to make professionally, I'm not going to tell you what my salary is, but look online. How much does a product marketing director with 20 years experience and excellent reviews make in the northeastern part of the United States of America, working at a tech company or a pharma company? Just look at it. I'll tell you what, it's a lot more than $10 an hour. It's a lot of money. And then factor in that they will give you health insurance and all kinds of other benefits and stock options. There is no way I could ever make that grifting. So it just drives me bananas that this is still thrown out there. Do me a favor, all right? When people throw these accusations out there about grifting, just shut it down. It's stupid. Even Candace Owens, with all of the differences I have about her money is not coming to her because she is grifting. That's absurd. She's getting a lot of money to do something. Even a children's health defense, it's not grifting, because there's no way, if it was all above board and honest, there is no way they could ever make as much money as they do simply by shaking a can and asking for buy me a coffee and grifting. There is no way. There is no way. So it's cheap, it's low, and I think people are losing an opportunity to get a lot more insight about what's really going on every time they throw around this accusation of grifting. Even the people that I can't stand, I will stand up and say, no, they're really not here to grift. That's the wrong way of thinking about it.
Speaking, there's also this, by the way. This is my favorite one. A few days before the exchange, in which Epstein appeared to have arranged a charter jet for Bannon, Epstein said, "How does it feel to have the most highly paid travel agent in history?" Bannon thanked him. "You are pretty good assistant," I think that's supposed to be. To which Epstein replied, "Massages not included." You get it? You get it because of the...
Now, that is a sick laugh. I want to be very well heard on this. If this guy had a child who was raped and killed by a predator, and if he really believed that Jeffrey Epstein had kidnapped and raped and killed children, like his 13-year-old daughter, do you really think that he would be telling jokes about it? Do you think he would be laughing about it? Ha ha ha. Do you think he'd be throwing his head back and just amused at how silly and fantastic it is? This is a reaction that I've seen many people on the conservative right, claiming to be conservative right, do with Jeffrey Epstein. They make funny thumbnail pictures about Jeffrey Epstein. They share funny thumbnail pictures about Joe Biden and children. If you really believed this happened, then what you would do is everything but laugh. You would be so enraged that you would actually question if you could leave your family and find that person and slit their throat, even though you may go to the electric chair for it. The last thing you would do is laugh about it on a podcast. So this suggests that he actually doesn't believe the accusations made against Epstein. That's my point. And the same thing happens on the right, the political right. There's this laughter and if I may, joy. There is joy. Look at that face. He is having a good time. I don't have a good time talking about the 1 million opioid drug overdoses in the United States of America. I don't have fun talking about the high quantity of child prostitution that happens in the United States more often than anything else linked with drug addiction. I don't have fun. I don't make funny thumbnails, ha 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 ha, joking about it. It's a very serious issue. I'm very angry about it. This behavior suggests that most people know deep down inside that the claims are not true. And I think that Jeffrey Epstein himself is also LARPing Jeffrey Epstein. There is a real person named Jeffrey Epstein. And maybe he's a little kinky or something. I don't know. But he has created the persona of Jeffrey Epstein. He did. Supposedly he died in 2019. I don't believe that. But anyways, officially he did. And he created a persona where he likes to talk about massages and young girls and flights and islands and, lots of things are being alluded, and he'll act kinky, and he always puckers up his lips in a really, weird way. All the photos so that people will get mad, and it's LARPing. He's created a persona of this philanthropic, jet-setting, food-cooking, investing sadistic pedophile who's connected with world leaders. He has created a persona, which maybe a few of those things match his real self, but I think most of them don't. It is a character that he created. Jeffrey Epstein did. And then he LARPs, and then people are laughing at the character. Find me someone that tells Jeffrey Dahmer jokes. No, seriously. Find me someone that will show a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer victims chopped up and horrible things having happened to them, and then do funny thumbnail pictures and think it's cool and just hilarious. You won't find it because people know that those atrocities happened. So I do get bothered by this. I'm going to play this other video that I showed yesterday. This is from a channel called Middle East Eye, which is rabidly anti-Israeli, which is fine. They do a lot of videos talking about the Gaza genocide, which is, again, the only genocide where there was actually massive population growth. There's actually a housing crisis in Gaza because they're having 2% a year population growth. It's a very weird genocide when the population growth is so large. Just throwing it out there that it's an odd thing to be running out of housing. Now, maybe some of it's because of the bombs, but also without more construction, they are growing at 2% a year, even after the genocide is factored in. But that's another story. Again, that's not what people want to hear. That's what people are told to not want to hear. More people die every year of drug overdoses in the United States of America, plus an additional 50,000 right now than have died since the beginning of the Gaza genocide due to the genocide. So that is where my priority is. So there's a lot of things I'm not lined up with it. But this is from an interview only about a week ago, and there's some very interesting things in this interview from a week ago on this channel, Middle East Eye. And I played this a little bit yesterday, but I'm going to play the full clip today.
Why is it that Epstein had his sights on India? From my understanding is that he wanted basically Steve Bannon to meet with Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India. Was this also part of some pro-Israel strategy?
Yeah, so this story was actually not based on the Barack Epstein emails. It was also based on the House Oversight Committee documents. And the reason we reported it was because the story, when these emails came out, it became a big deal in Indian media, and people were concerned that Indian officials were benefiting from Epstein's sex trafficking at this time. That was kind of the social media response to it, and even the government was forced to respond to it on that basis. But actually, I think the emails don't show that per se. Not to say it was or was not going on. That's just not what the emails show. But they did show that Epstein was involved in helping set up meetings for Bannon while Bannon was on a trip to India. And from what he described in the emails, and again, Epstein was not very, he's kind of very abrupt in his emails. He kind of made a lot of typos. He was not very explanatory in his emails per se. I think he explained the reasons for that in different contexts. But yeah, he indicated that this was related to something to do with ties with Israel. So one could surmise that perhaps that he saw building ties between U.S. elites and Indian elites as part of a broader goal of bringing together a pro-Israel compact in U.S. and Indian politics and holding them in power for the benefit of Israel, which is something that Epstein was very involved in. So I think that, you can look at the story, you can read it in Drop 10 News, and you can see that he was involved in setting up these meetings and so forth. I think that, it adds more weight to the fact that Epstein was someone who was very actively, to the end of his life, involved in helping promoting Israeli interests. But also, again, it lists the question, how is Epstein the person who had the sway and the pull to set up meetings between powerful figures all over the world, including India? And, I'll add one final thing that his calendars also showed, BJP officials meeting with him quite regularly in New York.
And the fact that India today is the largest purchaser of Israeli arms, do you think Epstein had a role in that relationship as well, in terms of how that turned out?
Well, I try to be very conservative in my
conclusions. What was that?
Had the sway and the pull to set up meetings between powerful figures all over the world, including India. And, I'll add one final thing that his calendars also showed, BJP officials meeting with him quite regularly in New York.
And the fact that India today is the largest purchaser of Israeli arms, do you think?
Okay. India is the largest purchaser of Israeli arms. India is the largest purchaser of Israeli arms. Now, I don't think Israel exports a lot of arms, and India, I think, spends more on military equipment from France than they do Israel. Probably one of the reasons why Candace Owens would be distracting people with the wife of Macron, President Macron, or Prime Minister Macron of France. But what Israel does is their business. What India does is their business. I believe in, this nationalism is just too much loaded in there. But, let's put it this way, localism. You can control what you can do locally a little bit easier, naturally anyways, than you can worldwide. And ensuring that everyone else around the world is doing everything that they should be doing is not my business. It's not my business. I can't even have a safe country to live in right now. What Israel and India want to do together is their business, or not do together. I hope that they work together. I mean, it would be good to know, but I'm trying to focus on what's going on locally. So why is it a big deal then? It's a big deal because of this Zion phobia, Israeli phobia, Israeli derangement syndrome that Candace Owens is a big part of being paid to promote right now. Constantly Israel, Zionist, Israel, Zionist, Epstein, Israel, Zionist, Epstein, Israel, Maxwell, Epstein, Israel, Zionist, Mossad, Epstein, Israel. And it's just Nick Fuentes and a lot of the rest of this, this network that's now saying we need to support Candace at any and all costs. Supporting Candace is more important than defending the United States of America right now. It is the most important mission of all time, is to defend Candace. And Candace Owens is a big part of this derangement of Israel. So, if X, then Y. If someone believes something, then they should be doing something. And if Israel is the root of all evil, if Israel is the root of all problems, if Israel is the crux of is where the civilization is going to end because of their evilness and badness and so on, as Candace Owens, as many others in this ecosystem of derangement advocate, then they should be aware that this awful, nasty, mean, satanic country of Israel, the number one buyer of their weapons is India. Right? It should be known. They should know this. And the nations which are allying closest with Israel should be spoken about, at the very least, almost as frequently as Israel itself. If the U.S. is bad because the U.S. has a relationship with Israel, which is metered by financial support and weapons transactions, turning the other way for what's happening in Gaza, if the United States is bad because of that, then therefore every other nation which also has this close relationship with Israel needs to be equally scorned. And for some odd reason, it's U.S. bad because Israel is so bad, but they never mention anyone working with Israel. Like, that's it. It's just, they don't look there. Now, whatever happens between Israel and India is their business. Again, I'm not really interested in that. I'm highlighting it right now, though, because it highlights a discrepancy, an incongruency. If X, then Y. If Israel is so satanic and so bad and so evil, then all of the other relationships of Israel should be spoken about regularly, but they are not. They are not. Now, also, why the heck is Steve Bannon so involved with India? Well, Steve Bannon has been a major supporter of advancing and protecting U.S. relationship with India. That's Steve Bannon's thing. He has been thinking about it, at least according to his actions and his writings, and talking about it more than just about anything else, that the future of the U.S. is India. And it's odd. And here he is using Epstein, supposedly, to get his connections to India. Now, the past shows that Steve Bannon should not need Jeffrey Epstein to get any more connections within India. Steve Bannon has already met a lot of important people in India. Steve Bannon has already gone to the Vatican. Steve Bannon has led and started a right-wing movement within the Vatican. Steve Bannon shouldn't need Jeffrey Epstein. There's no way Jeffrey Epstein could possibly be so connected with people in India that Steve Bannon needs Jeffrey Epstein for that. It's odd. So even though it is a breaking story, I don't believe it. There's something about the story that is either totally wrong, it's pushed to deflect and to distract or confuse, or maybe it's backwards. Maybe and they didn't expect this. I suspect that they didn't plan to get to where they are now. When Jeffrey Epstein was killed in 2019, suicide, when Epstein was removed from the map that way, in 2019, I don't believe the plan was to get to where they are right now. Several things probably have not gone according to plan. These emails that have come out about Epstein and Bannon and the leadership of India are from 2019. And they're coming out now, and they're being used as a reason to get Steve Bannon out of the picture because it shows Steve Bannon is connected with Epstein. But there's a lot of other dimensions here, because remember, in May of 2025, just a few months before, Charlie Kirk died. On September 10th, 2025, we're led to believe September 10th it happened then because the Jews and Israel and Zionists wanted to take out Charlie Kirk because of 9/11 or something like that. Charlie Kirk's comments were the U.S. should not get involved in the conflict between India and Pakistan. And most of the evidence about Charlie Kirk being Israel, Googling the name of the medical examiner in Utah, all of that happened after Charlie Kirk's comments on India, Pakistan. Candace Owens made a big stink about Eric Kirk going to a U.S. Washington, D.C. swearing-in ceremony, just one, and big surprise. It was for the friend of Charlie Kirk, Sergei Gore, being sworn in as the new U.S. ambassador to India. Sorry, folks, this is not just coincidence. The person who, one of the several people who did go to the house at least twice of my friend Jonathan Cooey of GigaOM Biological is an American woman named Piper Stover, who was directed to go there somehow by I don't know, her job. She spent the last 20 years in China speaking Mandarin and being nice to the Chinese, but I guess suddenly the Chinese are bad. So she wound up on a podcast with the former U.S. ambassador to India, Richard Verma, at the end of 2019, bashing China, praising India a little bit, and then going on to call up Jonathan Cooey and tell him what to talk about and what not to talk about. And another friend of Richard Verma, or Piper Stover, I think, and also Richard Verma, wound up becoming regular guy and doing podcasts again, and conversations that I've had with him, constantly bashing China and saying, don't worry about India. This is really odd. Not to mention Richard Verma, as the former U.S. ambassador, goes back again, working at the Hillary Clinton State Department, and I think one of the reasons he wound up there was the advisement of someone named, last name Fuchs, who was the original investor in Radar magazine to get it off the ground for the first 2 test issues in 2003. You know, the magazine that hired the staff of Talk magazine, Harvey Weinstein, Tucker Carlson, which went out of business, closed up shop at the end of 9/11, or right after 9/11. India is a big player here somehow. I'm happy to see India getting their shit together. I'm happy to see India having prosperity. I'm happy to see India building so much infrastructure. I really am. I know it may seem that at first easy to confuse with bashing. I'm jealous of China. I'm jealous of India. I see their infrastructure. I see their enthusiasm in their future, and I don't feel this right now in the United States. I feel a country that's just it's untethered right now. It's a little bit lost and very confused, divided and misled. I want that energy and that enthusiasm and that dedication captured in my own country. And I don't blame other nations for wanting to influence what happens to the U.S. If the U.S. is too weak, too divided, and it sells itself out and too filled with traitors, well, then it's our loss. It's not India's fault. But I am well within my rights, able to highlight how terrible it is that we have so many Indian nationals right now in the United States government, where I have friends of Indian ancestry born in the United States who are as American as I am, who can't get those opportunities. It's almost as if there's a foreign infiltration being supported right now of the United States of America. I can't quite fully understand it, but I can identify it. And it's time to start calling it out. All of this starts, I learned much of this before I ever really even looked at Candace Owens' story. But the Candace Owens story, when you dig in and you remove yourself from being mad at Candace or wanting to defend Candace, just how did she get these jobs? Trust me, I'm sure there were at least a few other people in the United States of America that would have been willing to work as an admin for a private equity company at age 23 after dropping out of college. Candace Owens didn't even have a degree. Was it Yusef Jackson? That would make a lot of sense. Yusef Jackson went on to be a pallbearer for Mark Weiner in 2016, and Mark Weiner's daughter, Zoe Weiner, is the one that Candace Owens started a company with. Do you see how easy it is to say that? And Yusef Jackson worked with Jeffrey Epstein, at least as far as investing in Radar magazine goes. Look how easy I just summed that up. That can fit within a 60-second TikTok right there. Something isn't going according to plan right now. Something is failing big time. Right there, I think Steve Bannon is having to step off the stage right now because of his connections with Epstein, and the future use of Candace Owens is very big, or at the very least was very big. I'm very worried about something that this Lionel show. I don't know the guy's full name. I think he goes out in New York City. Man who used to be a lawyer. He's been podcasting since the beginning of the pandemic about something or other. A big QAnon supporter. And he's alluded to the fact that he's worried that Candace Owens is going to die of a drug overdose. He alluded that yesterday. Gosh. And this is, I think the seeds right now have been planted by a few other people about the possibility that Candace Owens could be removed from the stage. And does that mean killed for real? No. I don't think Charlie Kirk was killed for real. Yeah, and I think the evidence kind of backs it up. I messaged someone today. Actually, I gave someone a super chat, a YouTuber named Patriot Housewife. She was so thankful. I sent her a $20 super chat. I don't think anyone's sent her many super chats before. And I sent her a super chat. She was talking about the Charlie Kirk, Erica Kirk thing, of course, Candace. And I said, the behavior of Erica Kirk is consistent with a wife whose husband just went into protective custody. And something like that could have happened perhaps after statements Charlie Kirk made about India. I didn't have to say the second part, but the first part is true. Erica Kirk's behavior, not always, she's either too sad or sometimes she almost seems to forget her husband is dead, can very easily be explained if she's not a great actress, and I don't think she's a great actress. She's a very attractive woman. I don't think she's a great actress. And being a bad actress doesn't mean that she's not a smart person. Some people just aren't good at acting, just good at acting. Maybe. In fact, sadly, I think people are better actors when they're better at lying. Maybe one of the reasons why she's a bad actress is because she's not a very good liar. But her behavior is very much lines up if you consider the possibility that her husband, Charlie Kirk, is not dead. Then it's like, you think about it. Now, Patriot Housewife, her response to that message was, I don't think he's dead. Okay, that's fine. Later on, someone else in the chat message of Patriot Housewife said, why aren't Charlie Kirk's parents trying to figure out? Is it because they don't care or something like that? Which Patriot Housewife responded, they were probably told not to ask questions. And I'm thinking, find me a parent who knows that their child was killed and they're willing to be quiet, for $1 million? Why? Because they just should be. That does not resonate with it. Maybe there's somebody out there who just didn't like one of their kids or something, but there are almost no parents that will just, one of those things. It was a bad deal, whatever you're going to do. You win some, you lose some. No parent will do that. However, and I don't know why Patriot Housewife didn't throw this out there. If Charlie Kirk wasn't dead, that would also line up with his parents not asking too many questions. In fact, if Charlie Kirk was in witness protection, the last thing you would want are people looking for him. So again, check. Why is the behavior of all the people that died around Charlie Kirk, like around the tent, why do they not seem to be asking questions? And then people are like, maybe it's because they were paid off. Maybe it's because they're too scared. Maybe it's because they were part of killing him. Okay, you know what another option is? They all know he's not dead. Check. And in fact, every single inconsistent piece of behavior from from Charlie Kirk's wife, to Charlie Kirk's parents, to Charlie Kirk's sister, to the people under a tent, to conservative media, to the people at Turning Point, everybody, and Candace Owens herself, can simply be described and is fully consistent with knowledge that Charlie Kirk isn't dead. So, what is the simplest explanation? Charlie Kirk's not dead and they just know it and they're doing a really bad job at acting it and they're trying to move on, or Candace Owens is paid to, along with Bannon and the rest of the crowd to say, well, is India bad or Israel bad? Israel did it. The Zionists did it. Or he's just not dead. And it's such a simple answer. All of the incongruent, inconsistent behavior is explained away by that. Now, that does not mean that there's some joke happening here, that it's happening for funny reasons. Ha ha, he's playing dead. They fooled you. No, it's not a joke. It would suggest the possibility that Charlie Kirk had to be removed from the stage. They needed to make it look like a real assassination because maybe someone really was going to kill him. Maybe the government of India said, look, you need to remove this guy. He is creating a diplomatic relationship problem for India and the United States. Maybe the national security state with Charlie Kirk said, for the purposes of the security of the United States of America, we need to put you in witness protection. For the rest of your life, you're going to get a new identity. Okay. And then Trump said, well, you know what? As part of the negotiation, the next ambassador is going to be Charlie Kirk's friend. I'm going to make Sergei Gore the next ambassador to India. And that's part of the negotiations. So doesn't that make so much sense? And in fact, this downhill and all of this seeding of evidence that Charlie Kirk was going to be killed by the Israelis started after Charlie Kirk spoke out about avoiding getting into
the India-Pakistan conflict.
It's so simple, but it won't be entertained. They're going to come up with conspiracy after side story and bad whistleblowers and DIA and this Mitch snow job and I don't know. It's never going to end. The simplest explanation is someone was removed from the stage. Not because it's funny, though. There's also been allegations that Erica Kirk was never really married to Charlie Kirk and that they're not even their kids. Now, I don't know her personally. I don't know. Maybe that's possible. But how could someone throw that out there as a possibility and then be furious at any suggestion that Candace Owens, who never looked pregnant in her life, has 4 kids? It's more likely, far more likely, that Eric Kirk was really married to Charlie Kirk, or still is, with 2 kids, than Candace Owens having 4 kids with a I don't know, almost a billionaire out in England. That doesn't make any sense. That makes 0 sense. Anyways, the question is out there now. Did Candace Owens interview at Jeffrey Epstein? Did Candace Owens work with Jeffrey Epstein? The timeline between, in particular, with Milo first meeting her in 2016, up till the time that Steve Bannon goes to the border to talk with her. And remember, this Steve Bannon interview at the border with Candace Owens happens right after Steve Bannon did the last interview with Jeffrey Epstein, and just a few days before the death of Jeffrey Epstein, Candace Owens, again, getting her start thanks to Milo, or one of the starts thanks to Milo. Milo working for Steve Bannon, thinking Gamergate. Think Steve Bannon, Harvey Weinstein, go back to 2005. Almost $1 billion deal between funding from Goldman Sachs and the Miramax studios, but possibly back to the 1990s when you look at MGM and other financial concerns involving the Krikorians, Frankistra partners, etc., which also explains why maybe Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, and the rest of the Armenian Genocide Awareness Group funded by Kirk Kerkorian out in Nevada seem to have come to the rescue for Candace in 2017, lifting her up. And in fact, you can even see her planting seeds in 2015 that she's going to be a big Kanye and Kardashian supporter. I mean, we can just keep going on and on and on forever and ever. And here I am, an hour and 10 minutes in. It's 4:20 right now. I need to get ready to go out tonight. I'm sorry. I think I need to start wrapping this one up. Just to maybe summarize a little bit. This is DVRST, titles Dream Space. This was Mark Kulak, 4:22 p.m. Saturday, December 27th, 2025. Thank you. God bless. Candace Owens, Jeffrey Epstein.